Hello, AP Worlders. We're back with part 2 of Commerce and Culture. And so just to recap or review, here's a look at the different trade routes that we had during this time period. All right, we had the Trans-Sahara, which went north and south and also east and west across the Sahara Desert. We got the IOB, the Indian Ocean Basin Trade, the Silk Road, Mediterranean, and then the ones here in the Americas. All right. This one would be with the Incans, right, along the Incan roads, all right, in the Andes Mountains. And then here in Mesoamerica was our other one with the Mayans, like the Aztecs, trading there. All right, so part 2, first we're going to look at some of the sea routes. All right, this first one here, the Mediterranean. See a star here, like here's Italy, right, Venice. All right, so this Mediterranean region, Italian city of Venice is going to be the trade leader. All right, so right here, there's going to be the trade leader, and they're going to distribute goods throughout Europe, because Venice is going to be able to have ships coming through the Mediterranean, getting goods from the Arabs and from North Africa. So goods from Asia are going to make it into the Mediterranean. It's going to come up the Red Sea, all right, and then the Venetian merchants would pick those goods up and resell them throughout Europe. All right, so come up here through the Red Sea. They would meet them here, and then bring them back to Venice and distribute them throughout Europe. All right, next, the IOB. All right, the IOB, this Indian Ocean trade. Here are some of the main stops, the stars along that. All right, so you see you got the East Coast trade cities. All right, you got the Arabs, the Islamic Arabs here. We got South Asia, Southeast Asia, and then East Asia. Those would be the parts of our trade here in the Indian Ocean. All right, and the sea trade had a lot of advantages over land routes. First, transportation costs were lower, so ships could hold more cargo. And due to these advantages, sea routes were not limited to luxury goods, so commoners were able to get these goods. All right, so remember the Silk Road, since it was so expensive, it really only affected mostly the rich, but since sea trade, the boats could carry more, the commoners would be able to benefit from this. Here's another look at the Indian Ocean sea trade, and these arrows here are showing the monsoons. And the monsoons are what enabled this trade to occur because the monsoons would push the boats in the direction. So from April to September, the monsoon winds would blow it this way. So the boats would return back to Southeast Asia and East Asia following the winds. And then during November through February, the monsoons would blow to the west. So the boats would go out on their trips to pick up these goods. All right, and then they would wait here until April when they could use the winds to go back. All right. There were various technological innovations that also helped improve the sea trade. First, there were improved sails. All right, so they created new sails that were triangular. That was a little bit easier to maneuver. There were new kinds of ships that were called junks. All right, which were better, and their rudders were more stable, and they also had new ways of calculating their trips. All right, new ways of calculating latitude, such as the astrolabe and the magnetic compass, to help them navigate these seas. Southeast Asia and East Africa, they had new political changes due to this trade. All right, there was new wealth that was created due to this trade, and new large states and cities were created. They also went through large cultural change, especially in religion. All right, let's look at East Africa first. All right, they became Muslim, right, these Swahili city-states. And in Southeast Asia, what spread there was Buddhism. Hinduism also is going to come. All right, Angkor Wat is spelled Angkor space WAT. That is here in Southeast Asia. I believe it's Vietnam, but it shows how Hinduism also spread to Vietnam. Not in large numbers like Buddhism, but it did have an impact, right? Which would come from India in this trade. In both these places, local people found power in the new wealth from this trade. And like the city-states of ancient Greece, the city-states here were independent politically. And they would get goods from the interior Africa, from like the Great Zimbabwe place, and exchange those goods in the IOB trade. And these cities will become Islamic from trading with the Arab merchants. The interior Africa became wealthy as well, and the most powerful of those was the Great Zimbabwe. Some products, the Mediterranean region. Some products that came from the Mediterranean region that would enter the IOB would be ceramics, wine, olive oil. From East Africa, we would get ivory, gold, slaves. From Arabia, we would get perfumes and spices. India, we would get grain, precious stones, cotton textiles. Southeast Asia, we would get tin, cloves, nutmeg, so you could just say spices. And in China, we would still get silk, porcelain, and tea. Now let's switch from sea trade to our desert trade, the Trans-Sahara. And south of the Sahara Desert was an agricultural region. So down here you see the rivers, so that would be good for agriculture. And they would produce grain. Up here they could produce salt. And then the turning point, they also would get gold from down here. All right. But then the turning point of this trade came when camels were introduced. And the camels enabled the people to move across the desert. Islam is going to spread easily across this trade. So there is going to be salt trade coming down from the north, gold and agriculture coming from the south. And there would be these huge caravans of traders or merchants with these camels. There would be as many as 5,000 camels and hundreds of people traveling across the desert. And they would travel mostly at night to avoid the heat, and it would take them like so many days to make this voyage across the desert. The people of the Sudan living between the two were in the best spot or position to take advantage as these large states would rise. All right, so here's Timbuktu. So you know the three places that we talked about: Mali, Songhai, and Ghana. And they would tax the trade for this gold and salt. These monarchies were built with elaborate wealth. All right, hence Mansa Musa. Timbuktu became the center of Islamic learning, with new universities established there. And as we talked about Mansa Musa, right, he displayed his wealth by handing out gold as he made his pilgrimage back to Mecca. And this would foreshadow to Europe wanting to explore Africa during our next era. All right, then our last trade here in the Americas. The trade in the Americas was a lot less dense than all this trade going on, meaning there was less goods that were going to be traded over there. And the reason is geographic and environmental differences. The first, because this was north-south trade. So since it was north-south trade, all right, there'd be big variations in weather, right? Because, you know, equator, right, north-south, further away you get. So that would hamper trade, where you see most of trade here was east to west trade. All right. And also here you have a lot of mountains, so that's going to hamper trade, these Andes Mountains. Sorry. All right. But the one route to know is these turquoise routes that would spread through here, right? Spreading turquoise and other goods. All right, so that's it for our trade. You guys should be studying for the test coming up.